gut, dass ja soweit ich weiß, das ist Molly.
What's up, guys? It's your boy, the man, the myth, the legend, pickdroppers, back at it again with a Fortnite Battle Royale video. Now in this video, I'm going to be going over my 10 problems with PAX West Summer Skirmish. Now, overall, I thought PAX West was about a 4 or 5 from a scale from 1 to 10. And I was pretty disappointed. I thought it was going to be between like an 8 and a 9, but it turned out to be between a 4 and a 5. And I'm going to give my reasons for that. Number 1. The viewers were sometimes spectating players who were sitting down, doing nothing, while people near them were fighting. There was a lot of times where they were spectating players who were farming or just sitting in a house, and no one was really too close to them. And if there were people close to them, they were fighting, and you could see in the kill feed all the players that were fighting. And instead of them showing the players fighting, they decided to show the one guy not fighting. And I found that pretty frustrating. And there were also times where they quickly cut away from the player while he was about to get into another engagement, just to show another player who's farming, and that was also pretty frustrating. Number 2, you could hear echo from the casters. Now this is not one of my biggest problems because this is obviously one of the hardest to control, but I feel like Epic should have done a better job for the viewers not to have to listen to basically the casters talking twice, because what happened was the casters were talking, and then the people who were watching inside the PAX West were also listening to the casters talking, and since it was on a delay, it was basically the casters talking twice, because you could hear both the casters talk to the viewer and the casters in the auditorium or whatever they were playing in at PAX West. And so you could hear the casters twice, which definitely made me pretty unhappy, I would say. And that's definitely a problem they need to address for their next tournament. Number 3. Epic was not vocal about when the stream started. This is one of my biggest problems. On Fortnite's Twitter page, I saw almost nothing about when the stream started. I looked on Reddit, I looked on Epic Games' website, and there was almost no promotion about the time it started. There was a good amount of promotion about the days it was, but you would have to really go in depth to find what time it started. And that's definitely not something that's good for a tournament, because you want people to show up, you want people to watch the stream, but people can't watch if they don't know what time it is. And not even the streamers knew what time it was. I was looking at Daquan's stream, and he had no clue what time the tournament would start, and that's something they really need to fix. They need to do a better job at publicizing what time the streams are, and I definitely feel like it will get more views. The streams topped out at about 700,000 viewers on Twitch, and a couple of 100,000 on YouTube for the finals. But before the finals, the 3 qualifier rounds, I think it topped out at like 300,000 or 250,000, which is just a little bit more than normal for Fortnite at that time. And so I definitely feel like Fortnite needs to do a better job at publicizing what time the events are. But coming in at number 4, I have the stream did not ever start on time. This was another very frustrating thing. We were told the stream starts at 9. Epic Games doesn't tweet, or Fortnite doesn't tweet anything. They don't tell us anything at all about it being delayed. Turns out it's delayed 45 minutes, and then it gets delayed another 15 minutes after that, so it doesn't start until 10, even though it was originally supposed to start at 9. We're told it started at 9, and we don't get anything until much later. They first bring it back to 9:30, and then they bring it all the way back to 10. And mind you, this happened all 3 days of the qualifier. The only day it didn't happen was for the finals, and the reason, I think the reason for that it happened in the qualifier It's because they first needed to switch all the settings from the games that happened previously, but I feel like Epic Games should have known that, and they should have either told us that it was starting at 10 instead of 9, and this is Eastern Standard Time, by the way. But they should have told us it was going to start at 10 instead of 9. Instead, they just told us it was technical difficulties, but it's pretty obvious that the problem was they weren't able to get everybody set up in time, and I feel like Epic Games could have told us, especially the other 2 days, the latter 2 days. Maybe the first day, they didn't know, they weren't expecting it, but the last 2 days, they already knew what was going to happen, and they should have told the viewer that they were going to be pushing back the times to 10 o'clock. But coming in at number 5, is rules for how players could qualify again if they were knocked out in day 1 or day 2 were not explicitly said. This is another big problem I had. For players, you couldn't really find out how players could re-qualify and which players couldn't re-qualify. I had to do a lot of digging, and turns out the rules were that if Epic Games sent you out, you could not re-qualify. But if they did not, you could re-qualify. And this is definitely something Epic Games need to say, because a lot of the players were also confused. Myth and Vivid both got knocked out and they weren't able to re-qualify because they were invited out to the event. But there's a lot of other players who were able to re-qualify because they were not invited to the event. And I feel like Epic Games definitely needed to do a better job of saying what the rules were for players who were knocked out. And I feel like this is a problem for the viewers, but it's also a problem for the players. But coming in at number 6, players were forced to use certain peripherals. This is a huge problem I had, and I can kind of see both sides of the story. So players were forced to use this Logitech keyboard and a Logitech mouse, but they were specific keyboards and mouse. So you couldn't even choose any type of Logitech. And so I feel like there's a couple of problems with this. One, the players aren't used to it. It's like giving a tennis player a different racket or something, or a baseball player a different bat. And also, the mouse was supposedly so heavy, and that's another problem. If your mouse is like really heavy, it's much different. It's just, and a lot of players were complaining about the mouse. And I feel like Epic Games needed to do a better job. I feel like at least let the players use any type of Logitech, because I feel like Logitech was the sponsor, I'm guessing, so they had to use Logitech. But another thing that I read is that they wanted everybody to use the same thing so no one could have cheated or hacked the mouse or the keyboard. But I feel like Epic Games could have done something better to like prevent that from happening and let people use their own stuff. Maybe they order the keyboard and mouse in for every single player. I know this would be a little good amount of money, but maybe they could put a cap on how much players could spend, like $50, $60 on the mouse, $50, $60 on the keyboard, something like that. But another thing was that they didn't want to be switching everybody's stuff every single game. But I feel like switching a keyboard and a mouse is super easy, and that's something you can definitely do every game. Another thing, though, for console players, they weren't allowed to use their scuffs, and I feel like that's a huge thing because console players are so used to using their scuffs. But the console players still showed up, or at least the 2 big ones, Aiden and Nick Merckx. They definitely did a great job and showed out for console players. But overall, I feel like everybody should have been allowed to use their stuff and what they've been playing on, because it didn't really show their true skill, because they weren't really used to that equipment. Number 7, placements held too much value. This is something that a lot of people reiterated, that, or at least what I saw on like Twitter and Reddit, was that placements held way too much value. Players were just trying to get into the top 10 because you could get a point for the top 10, and they were basically saying a top 10 placement is equal to getting 3 or 4 kills, which I find very dumb. I see no reason why someone getting a top 10 and 0 kills should be equal to someone getting like 20th place and getting 3 or 4 kills. That makes absolutely no sense. You can see throughout the game, there were so many people late game, they were just sitting in a box. And it was basically whoever avoided confrontation and whoever got lucky that no one spawned near them got the best, the best placement. And I feel like that should not happen in these tournaments. I feel like kills need to be rewarded, and Epic Games did a very good job of doing that in the first 7 weeks or 8 weeks, however many weeks we had before this. But I feel like they didn't do a good job in this tournament, and I feel like the placements just held too much value. But coming in at number 8, I have the viewer does not know how many points each player has until the end. Now for the finals, I'll admit they did a much better job at reiterating the standings. But in the qualifier rounds, nobody knew how much points each player had. I feel like Epic Games should have showed how many points the player had whenever they switched to different point of views. Or at least at the end of each game. Instead, Epic Games decided to do it at the very end of the whole day, and I feel like that was definitely unnecessary because I had no clue how many points anybody had. I had to look up on Twitter and Reddit, and I had to look up and do my own math, and I had to. It was just super frustrating. But I feel like the viewers should have known how many points the certain players had. But coming in at number 9, the coin flip for a tiebreaker. I'm not going to go too much into this. This is obviously very stupid. Coin flip should never decide whether or not someone goes to the next round. Apparently, this coin flip was for $5,000 pretty much, because whoever made it to the next round got a guaranteed $5,000. And so it was $5,000 plus how much you could have won. And there's 99 people in the tournament, so I feel like in that rare scenario, they should have let both players in. Cap it at 100 players like they usually do, because they had an open spot, and I feel like a coin flip should never decide they needed more tiebreakers. But last thing, coming in at number 10, all monitors were not the same for most participants. Obviously, this is another problem. It goes into peripherals. You need the players to have the same monitors. Obviously, this is going to affect the frame rate, and a lot of players were complaining about the frame rate. And so I feel like Epic Games needs to do a better job at making sure if everybody has the same keyboard and mouse, everybody needs to have the same monitor. But overall, I was not too happy with this tournament, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Please like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, comment down below on what you'd like to see next. It's your boy Pickdroppers, and I'm out. Peace!